Morning. I'd like to call the Criminal Justice Committee meeting, May 13, to order. If we could get a roll call, please.
Mr. Hess?
Present.
Mr. Byrne?
Present.
Mr. Lear?
Present.
Mr. Stipes? He's just coming in. Ms. Dunbar? Ms. Parker?
Present.
Mr. Fairfield?
Present.
Mr. Curico?
Present.
Mr. Eckhoff? Mr. Smith?
Present.
Ms. DiColo?
Present.
Mr. Swanson?
Present.
Mr. Long?
Present.
Mr. Kirkstra?
Present.
Mr. Wheeler?
Present.
Mr. Seroy? We have a quorum.
Excellent. Okay with you, Mr. Hess, if I run the meeting?
Correct. You have to yield the chair to you.
Thank you, sir. And maybe after we get going here, we can try this remotely and see if maybe next month, if we're still here, we can see if you guys can run it from where you're at remotely, and know that you can come in here always and run it if you would like. I have no request for public comment. Approval of the minutes from March 11th, 2020. Is there a motion?
So motion made.
I saw Mr. Long and then a second for Mr. Byrne. Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. First up is under Chief Judge Michael Kramer. Do you have anything for us today, Judge?
Well, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
I just wanted to fill you in on what's going on over at the courthouse. We've been open since the crisis started for emergency matters, and we've been doing hearings remotely pursuant to a Supreme Court order that was entered back in the middle of March that allows us to do that. And that Supreme Court order continued all other cases till a time that the Supreme Court enters a new order, and they haven't done that yet, but we're anticipating that coming probably later this week, maybe next week. They'll allow us to resume normal activity. We're expecting that that's going to happen here about June 1st, and we're taking all the precautions necessary to allow safe operation of our courts, social distancing, wearing masks, lots of hand sanitizer, and really trying to limit the number of people that come into the courthouse. We don't want people there that are just there to spend time. They really need to have a purpose in being there. So because the space in the courthouse is limited. We also intend to attempt to try at least one jury trial sometime during June. May not be on the 1st, but we would like to resume jury trials because we have people in jail that are awaiting their trial that we need to move on. Obviously, as we've been slowing our activity down to just emergency matters, there's been a backlog that's built up. And so for the next several months after we reopen, it's going to be quite a bit of activity here. The number of cases will be much higher than normal. We've had great cooperation from county personnel. I want to start with the IT department. Kevin Duvall and Jason Shane have really helped us in setting up remote court hearings, which we are allowed to do under Supreme Court rule. That has kept us functioning. That's kept our specialty courts functioning, drug court and veterans treatment court. We do that by Zoom meeting, and we call the participants each week. That's been a great help from the IT department. Also had tremendous help and cooperation from the sheriff's personnel that work here at the courthouse every day, exposing themselves to anybody that walks into the building. They have just been outstanding in helping people understand that we're in a crisis situation and we need to take precautions, and they've done that in a respectful and professional manner every single day since this crisis has started. That cooperation doesn't occur everywhere, so I'm greatly appreciative to what we have in this county. Are there any questions about slowly resuming operations that I can answer for anybody.
Judge, will they have to be required to wear their own mask, or are we providing a mask? Hopefully, they're going to have their own.
That's a really excellent question, Mr. Snipes. Yes, people coming to the courthouse are to have their own masks. We're not in the business of supplying that. Obviously, if we did try, so we're not providing masks as a routine matter. Now, that being said, obviously, if somebody shows up in an emergency situation that needs an order of protection immediately, and they don't have a mask, we're going to make sure they have a mask so they can do their business in the courthouse safely. But routinely, we are not providing masks. We expect people to have their own masks.
Thank you.
But,
Any other questions?
One question on that, Your Honor.
Yes, Mr. Leary.
What about defendants? People that have been incarcerated, will they have access to masks?
absolutely. While they're well, the sheriff can answer that, but the people in custody are taken care of very well at the jail. As you know, we've had no cases out of the jail, which is a miracle. There's been just tremendous efforts there to separate new people coming into the jails, my understanding, and they're taking every precaution that they can at the jail. So yeah, they've done a great job, and we're not bringing people over from the jail to the courthouse unless it would be for a trial or something, but we're doing things remotely using our DA system.
Yeah, I was thinking June when you did that jury trial.
Well, obviously in June, anybody entering the courthouse will have a mask on, so that would include the defendant.
And
I will say during a trial, there will be people that have to take their masks off so that the court reporter can hear them, understand them, and watch their lips move so they can make a record of the proceedings, which is required. So witnesses will be able to take their masks off. Obviously, attorneys, while they're speaking, will have their masks off, and the judge, while speaking, will have the mask off. Other than that, we expect everyone else to be wearing a mask. Well, again, thank you everyone for the great cooperation we've got here at the courthouse. Like I said, we've been open, and people come here every day, and we're able to provide access to justice on an emergency basis, and hopefully we'll be back to normal sometime in June.
thank you, Judge. Hey, I have a quick question. Is the work that's been going on over there for ADA and you know, the steps in and the circle drive and everything in Judge Albrecht's chambers, has that been cumbersome to work around, or has it been pretty smooth in the overall operations?
Chairman, I got to tell you that it couldn't have happened at a more perfect time. The courthouse activity is way down because we're only doing emergency matters. So if this couldn't have come at a better time. There's really not many people approaching the courthouse. They have access from the front door, but the circle drive is a mess right now.
Yeah.
I had to kind of make an effort to get into the building this morning, but that project is coming along nicely. We expect it probably to be done by June when we're rolling ourselves back into business here. But the work that's been done has not been disruptive at all. The courtroom on the second floor, the ADA courtroom, is essentially completed. That happened without any disruption here at the courthouse. So it couldn't have come at a better time, really.
Good. Thank you. Any other questions for Judge Kramer? All righty then. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yep.
Have
Moving
a
on.
good day.
You too. Moving on, Circuit Clerk's report, Sandy Cianci.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So I guess I'll just start the disbursement report. As you can see, it's quite a bit lower than normal. Our deposits have been pretty light every day in comparison to normal. If you look at the Harris & Harris report, their collections have also decreased. In keeping in touch with my representatives that work with Harris, they have been taking on a more compassionate role when they are contacting the people. They're really just checking in, the people that owe the money, they're just checking in with them and seeing how they're doing and if they can make payments or not, that kind of a thought process. I do have a call with him this morning at 10 o'clock, so I'll see where we are and where we're going in the future with, you know, what their plans are. And then the state's attorney report, the collection report, that one is down also. It's these months, March, April, May are usually our big months due to the tax returns, but you know, people are just not bringing in their money. So we'll just have to see how it goes, you know, in the next couple months. That's about all I have for that.
Is there any I guess first I'll take a motion to accept the report.
So moved.
Mr. Snipes, second.
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 Mrs. Parker, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. All righty. Any questions for Sandy about those reports?
Sandy, I guess with the decrease in the revenue that's coming, but certainly at some point it's going to pick back up. Most of that is due to the fact that there's limited access to the courthouse, or do we have like an online provision where they can pay online?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, we do have a credit card, third-party credit card vendor that is on the website that they can pay through, and they can also pay with credit card through Harris & Harris. They call the number and do it over the phone, and I think they also have a web link where you can pay that way too. So, you know, people are utilizing that. What else was I going to say? That's about it for now. But yeah, there's ways to pay.
Okay.
Any other questions for Sandy? I did have one, Sandy. Is there a way to export the data that you have out of this system for Cashbook into Excel so we can look at trends charted in Excel and go month to month and take a look and see? I'm concerned, obviously, with revenues, as we all should be.
Sure.
Especially, is there a way to draw some correlations based on, you know, where we were at the beginning of this year and then where we're at now, and then maybe going out the next few months?
We actually are working on a report. We are working with CourtView right now to get that activity to be done right now. So as soon as we're ready to go, I can let you know, and then we can pull any report and put it into Excel, no problem.
Excellent. Yeah, as long as we have raw data, we can start to graph that and look at trend lines.
Yeah.
We're getting to that point where we really need to know. So yeah.
Yep.
Perfect.
Yep.
Thank you.
It was good timing, actually, that we did this. So.
Yeah.
So then, as far as the computerization goes, we're still working with Tyler Technologies, CourtView, and ourselves in the Administrative Office of Illinois Courts. We actually have a call again tomorrow. We're still not integrated with the civil e-filing project. It's been cumbersome to get it going. The last time there were glitches that just popped up when we were doing testing, when Paula in my office was doing the testing, she would receive a file and all of a sudden it would generate like 3 files in, you know, new cases rather than just the one that we needed. So we don't know what happened there, but, or I don't, they do. And so hopefully we'll get this wrapped up and sometime this summer. It would be nice to then be able to move on with the rest of the computerization that we're supposed to be doing. So that's about all I have right now.
All right. Anything else for Sandy?
One additional question, Sandy. Those that are doing appeals, have there been any lax, or are they still, of course, stringent with the 30-day period or 35-day period that they would have to file an appeal?
Well, people are filing their appeals, but then what's happening too is extensions are being requested, you know, from either side for whatever reason, and so I mean, it's all still moving fluidly. There's been no holdup with any of that.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Alrighty. Nothing
you.
else? Appreciate it, Sandy. Have a good day.
Thanks, you too.
Next up is Jim Rowe. Is there a motion to move him to the end to make him wait? No, I'm just kidding. Hey, Jim, do you have anything today?
No, we do not have a grand jury report because we've not had grand jury since March. All proceedings have been suspended. We're still charging cases, violent crimes, felonies, things that there's more of a sense of urgency with. We're moving those to preliminary hearings so we can get the cases filed, get the defendant before a judge, set a bond. Some cases, though, quite honestly, we're holding off to the side and waiting on charging because, one, we can't overwhelm the court system right now with preliminary hearings. Those take a lot longer than a grand jury proceeding. And some cases, we're just going to wait for grand juries to get going again. That are sitting by the side, they've been charged. Everything is prepped. We're just waiting to file them. Those may be things like a second offender, retail theft. That would be a felony because it's a second offense, even though it may have been a small value item. So some things we're setting off to the side and waiting on, but we are still doing, obviously, the aggravated domestics. Domestics are still going, sex cases, anything with violence or victim attached to it.
All right. Any questions for Jim today? There is no report.
Yes, Jim, and it might be, since Sandy is still on, they can answer the question. What was it? I got a question from someone in the community. How can they access their trial dates? Because many of them concerned the trial dates have moved forward, and I guess there's some technology where they can access it from a website. Can you kind of give them that information?
Yeah, I mean, the circuit clerk's office, Sandy runs a court view system. It's online. Those dates are updated regularly, so they can log on to Kankakee. If you just Google Kankakee County Court View, you'll get the site, and you can look up anyone's criminal case or traffic case by their last name, first name, date of birth, and that'll give them every entry that's been put into the docket in the circuit clerk's office. So they'll see their next court date on there. The chief judge, in every order he's issued, there's been a schedule attached that shows if your court date was May 3rd, it's now July 3rd. It basically shows those continuance dates as well. And then, they can always contact their attorney, of course. A last option, I would think, would be to call the circuit clerk's office. Sandy probably doesn't want her phones ringing off the hook, but she has made that option available to everyone as well. They can call her office and get their next court date.
And people have been calling, and it's not really been an issue. It's not been overwhelming. It's been decent, actually. People are doing really well with all of the changes.
Thank you.
One other thing, I saw this yesterday. So the governor signed a law. It goes into effect, I believe, July 1st. Basically says that the state will no longer put a hold on someone's driver's license if they owe fines to the state that are attributable to non-moving offenses. So in the past, if you owed a fine to the court and it was for a non-mover, you'd have a hold on your license. That would usually be the motivation to pay your fines so that you could get your license reinstated. The governor has suspended that. So now anyone who has a driver's license suspended due to non-payment, the non-moving violation, will have their licenses reinstated. For the county, what does that mean? It means it's going to be a lot more difficult to collect fines on all of those cases. So just, another hit to revenue, another way to put the cost of the criminal justice system onto the taxpayers instead of onto the criminals and those who break the law. Just another tough hit to take at a time when we can really least afford it.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow.
and they show the public defender when I, just popped up on my screen, Ed.
No.
That's all I've got.
What is considered to be a non-moving violation so that people would kind of know if we were looking at those tickets? And is there any way around that if those tickets have been escalated to say like a DUI or some more serious offense where you can attach it to that case? I mean, at least to the fines when they have to pay it when you bring those cases before the court. What would be considered the non-moving violation? And then again, what ways could we probably attach it to their aggregate case if that's possible?
Well, each ticket is a separate written, right? So in the system, each ticket would be a separate ticket, or separate, I should say. So if you have one for speeding and one for unlawful parking, right? If you get fined on the speeding ticket, that's going to be considered a moving violation. If you get a fine on parking, that's a non-moving.
Oh, okay.
So the ticket for the speeding would still have a hold on it.
Yes.
Is no insurance considered non-moving?
I'd have to check. I think that could fall into like registration,
Yeah,
vehicle sticker stuff.
because that's a fairly common one, I would imagine. You would see that
Yeah,
with
that's one of the
no,
higher
no
fines.
license, no insurance, you know?
That's one of the higher fines as well.
Yeah. I had a question about sentencing and you know, Department of Corrections in Illinois. Are they still not accepting new prisoners in DOC?
My understanding is that if you're in a county jail and you're sentenced to DOC, they're being held at the county jail too. The sheriff could probably speak to that, but I believe as of today, they're still not taking custody of the DOC inmate.
Okay. So
I have a question.
Is there just a follow up? Is there remuneration? Do we get paid by the state for holding their?
I'm going to let the sheriff speak to that. I believe there is.
Okay, well, I'll save it to then. I appreciate it. I think everybody sees where I'm going with that. Question, Mr. Byrne?
Yeah, just a quick question. Now, Jim, have you seen a rise in your office of domestic violence over the last couple months?
We have, and I actually had a meeting yesterday with Jenny Shanewetter from Harbor House.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about that as well. They're seeing a big uptick in hotline calls, crisis calls. We're seeing certain for cases coming through. It's concerning.
Yes, it is.
It's concerning.
I did have a follow-up, Jim, something I thought maybe for you. Do we have cases that we're awaiting sentencing? I'm just curious. Do we have any number of those in our courts being shut down? Is there a backlog of sentencing cases that'll go once we open?
God, I hope there is a backlog, and I certainly hope that those are some of the earlier ones we can get resolved and get out of our local jail.
Okay.
Yeah, there is a backlog. There was a backlog, to be honest with you, on sentencing before COVID.
Most of those, though, are we're bringing those over for sentencing because we have to. If somebody is going to get sentenced, they are still bringing them over and still part of the system going on.
Yeah, you know, the chief judge, like he said at the beginning of his report, the courthouse has been open. We haven't been closed. It's just reduced operations. But substantive matters are still proceeding. Bond hearings, the in custody call every day at 1:30, preliminary hearings, sentencing hearings. I know with starting up on June 1st, we're going to start doing bench trials, more sentencing hearings, hopefully. Then on getting jury trials going here in the near future.
Plus orders of protection have been, pretty steady as well.
Okay. Anyone have any other questions for Jim? All righty. Appreciate
Thank you,
it.
everyone. Have a good day.
You too. Next up, Public Defender Ed Pennewick.
Good morning.
Morning, Ed.
I know we filed the report May 11th, so if we want to address that first.
Sure.
Not me, though. You guys want to vote on it or approve it?
I'll usually hear it, and then we'll vote on it.
All right. Very
That's,
good.
that's Bones's method, correct, Mr. Hess?
Pardon?
You would, as the I guess the true chairman of this committee, do you want to hear it and then motion to approve after we hear the report?
I normally ask for an approval on it, then discussion.
Okay. Motion to approve. All righty. Did you get one? All right, Mr. Carrico and then Mr. Snipes with a second, and then discussion. Thank you.
And yeah, it's been a couple months. I apologize.
Maybe
As
too.
you can see, we have moved some cases last month. 18 were resolved in plea agreement. One of them was a gentleman with multiple felonies. So it looks like we are definitely processing cases, not 18 individuals, but 18 cases. We've been working remotely. One of my assistants just came in. She sneaks in at 7 a.m. before anyone gets here and leaves before I come in, or if I come in, she immediately runs out of the office, but I appreciate the fact she's here working now. I pretty much concur with what Mr. Rose said as far as what we're doing. We're doing the, not the minimum, but we're doing the most essential work, and we're continuing to do that. And we've been working closely with the jail. There's no doubt about that, trying to eliminate unnecessary court appearances, things of that nature. I don't know how much I want to talk this morning. I don't know how much you want to hear, but I've been amazed by how people have not been appearing into the courthouse, which is fantastic. That's been the goal of the chief judge. People are getting word of the continuances one way or another, and hopefully when we come back to a full operation again, that will they'll know to come back and show up and not get warrants. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. That's basically all I have at this point. If anybody has any questions.
Andy, can I say something?
Yes.
Yeah, I just want to say, I want to thank Ed and the public office. Everyone in his office has been great to work with. We've been able to resolve a lot of matters, to keep things moving. You don't always see that kind of cooperation between prosecution and defense, but it certainly exists here. And they're, being zealous advocates for their clients. We're fighting on our side as well, but it's just good to have that cooperation, be able to discuss things, and open lines of communication. So, thank you, Ed. Thank you also to Sandy's office. They've been great with helping us put things in order. Same thing to the Sheriff's Department.
Just to dovetail that, I agree. The preliminary hearings has been a substantial or substantive change on how the state's attorneys have processed felony cases, and I've been getting all the reports in a timely fashion. I've been able to correspond with the assistant in charge, and it's been going exceptionally smoothly. So yeah, things are going pretty well right now.
Any questions for Ed? Or we have a motion and a second for the report. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. All righty. Anything else, Ed, that you have for the group?
I'm curious what the sheriff says, but I know that if you go on the DOC website, the Department of Corrections website, you will see the inmate from our jail, his picture, his in date, his out date, so to speak. I have noticed that they are not getting the usual credit. I have emailed the Department of Corrections this morning, try to see what's going on with that as far as, normally you get day for day credit plus additional credit. They're not getting that credit yet. I'm assuming it's a processing issue at Joliet, but that's something I need to look into. I don't know if the sheriff has any insight on that or not, but so far everything's been going pretty well. That's all I have.
All righty. Just for my own knowledge, a lot of traffic cases, are those still moving at a normal pace? It's just
Look here.
Is that traditionally, is it always that high? I just hadn't jumped out at me before.
I am, I'm still relatively new to this, but that number has been consistent. I know that, I know the traffic call is very hectic, for lack of a better word, and it's been, obviously with COVID, traffic has, I'm assuming, been less of a priority for the parties, the judges, and everyone else. So I'm sure it's slowed down in the last 6 weeks. I would have to go back and look at my prior filings to see how many cases get resolved on an average month. But mean, that's pretty much been the number, to my understanding, for a while.
Okay.
According to, I mean, assuming that the 285 is accurate, which I'm assuming it is, and that's a pretty good chunk of cases there, you know, especially given COVID. So I'll have to look into that one, Mr. Wheeler.
Sure. Yeah. And is that one of those that people can zoom into the hearing, if you will, or the traffic ones, or do they physically have to show up?
Still physically have to show up.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for Ed? Alrighty. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Moving on, probation, Tom Latham. He has a monthly report. Can I get a motion on that?
No move.
Mr. Lear,
Second it.
second.
Yeah, Mr. Snipes.
Mr. Snipes. Alrighty. Go ahead, Tom.
Good morning. As you can see by the report, our contacts for April are down about 50%. Same time last year. We still have officers out at night in the community checking on people. However, all other contacts are by phone. We have officers working from home and the office every day, and all contacts are by phone until how we phase in-person contacts. We're working on that right now. It'll be after June 1st, but how we will do that, we're not sure yet. But two other statistics, you can see the drug testing for last month was 0, and no juveniles detained in the month of April. The two stats that stick out. We have 4 juveniles on GPS and 10 adults on GPS.
Alrighty. Any questions about the report? Tom. Alrighty. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
The only other, one major issue we're going to have going forward is drug testing, how we can safely collect those samples. Working on several things right now. Obviously, we have to find something and something soon. And like I said, with the in-person reporting, we're going to focus on our high-risk population, sex offenders, drug court, and others. We're even considering an option where I know many of you remember that our juvenile division down at the annex used to be the treasurer's office, and there's a roll-up window there that we had glass installed. That's in place now. At some point, we might start bringing people in to report through the glass. We haven't worked out all the details yet. It's just an idea, but might be a phase 1 to begin in-person reporting.
Sure. I have a question about the drug testing. Since legalization of both recreational and medical, is that still on the drug tests, based on current court, orders and things like that of people on probation?
Yes, it's still in the order. Several of our orders, we probably have 5 different probation orders. Probably 3 or 4 of them still don't allow the use of medical marijuana or alcohol or any marijuana.
Okay.
So yes, we do still test for it. It's on the.
All right. Any other questions?
Yeah, there's one time, along that same line of train of thought, do you differentiate between those individuals that are under the age of 21 who should not have the legalization, quote unquote, of marijuana versus those that are over 21?
Yes, obviously it's illegal, just like alcohol would be for anybody under the age of 21. So we would handle it the same way.
Okay.
Tom, have you heard anything about grant and aid or seen any disruptions yet?
Well, not every 2 weeks I have a call with administrative office and Illinois courts about this. Obviously, we received our last week we received December grant and aid, so we're about 5 months behind. Ideally, it's usually only about 3 months behind. What it looks like for fiscal year 22, state fiscal year 22, still talking about that. There's going to be no change to our state fiscal year 21 allocation. The next 6 months will stay the same. What happens for July 1st, I should say. That's what we're talking. Not sure.
Okay. Any other questions for Tom?
Just one other question, Tom, because I worked in the educational system, and some youth do not smoke marijuana, but their parents do. As a parent, because I go door to door Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and today I will be doing it. There's a strong presence of marijuana, but because it's legal, it's legal. But some of the youth complains because when the parents or other individuals that are of age smokes it, not only does it get in their clothes, but they're worrying about a contact high. And the thing is that if they were on probation and was trying to comply with the law and that happens, what, if anything, is in place so that they won't be charged unfairly or penalized unfairly, you know, if something like that occurs?
Well, the test, our test will not pick up contact like that. They have to use the marijuana for it to pick up on our test.
So
any kind of contact, yes. It's not going to happen that way. Even if they sat in a closed vehicle with an individual smoking it for a while, it wouldn't go in their system.
So it's not the fume, it's the actual smoke.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
All right. Any more questions? Great. Thanks, Tom. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Moving on, we have the sheriff's report. Mike Downey, on his monthly report, is there a motion to approve that? While we get that, do we have it up on the screen? No? Mike, do you have it on your computer? You're able to share the screen or not?
No.
It's in the packet, okay. We typically put it on the screen, so we'll do that next time so the public can see the information. It is available if people want to request it. So his report is in the packet. So I'm sorry, was there a motion in a second? Motion to approve.
I'll make the motion.
Mr. Hess, second.
Second.
Mr. Swanson. All right, moving in to the report.
All right, good morning, everybody.
Morning.
As Judge Kramer referenced, I want to give you a quick update on COVID and the issues that we're having here. As of today, at this time, there have been no known COVID positive cases in our jail, including both inmates and staff. And we have no known COVID positive cases in our sworn division either. Not to say that that won't change. As I've said before, and I've probably told a number of you, I think it's inevitable with the number of people that we have as far as our employees and the contact they have away from this building. We are doing a lot of things to hopefully prevent and get out ahead of what we hope won't happen. But as I said, I think it's inevitable in with the number of contacts that people who aren't housed here have on the outside. In addition to that, arrests in the county have not stopped. We are still booking in fact, since March the 20th, we have booked in 168 felons into our jail. Now, we have done a lot of things early on to hopefully prevent COVID from ever getting in here, but as I said, I think it might be inevitable. We stopped all visitors in the second week of March, really prior to everything coming down from the state. And so we were way out in front of limiting the number of people who came in our jail. Visitors, attorneys, basically everybody except employees. And I think that was a big help. Volunteers, they didn't come in either. We have been taking the temperatures of every employee walking into our building. We've limited access to our building to only one entrance. And so we've done a lot of things that we think have prevented this from entering into our facility. With that said, I think you as a committee and the rest of the board and those people watching should know that our corrections administration, including Chad Kalawenzu, Rob Schultz, and Marlon Woods, have done an outstanding job of staying ahead of this and getting out in front of it early. Our medical department. I've talked about our medical department a number of times and the job they do. And I've talked to this committee about how little care some people take of themselves until they get to jail. And they do an outstanding job of making sure that these inmates who get booked into our facility leave better than when they came in. And that's a credit to our medical director, Dr. Long, Mary Jo Snyder, our nurse practitioner, and Shannon Haggard. They've worked tirelessly, their entire staff, to help keep our staff and inmates healthy. Our maintenance department has done outstanding work in keeping our jail sanitized, keeping our office building out here sanitized. And lastly, and probably most important, our emergency management division, including Lieutenant Andy Baston and Becky Powell. They have worked with the state, they've worked with FEMA. We've had thousands and thousands of PPE delivered out here, of which we have shared to in all parts of the county, including hospitals, churches, the veterans home, just to name a few. So we couldn't be where we're at without the people that I've just mentioned. Our entire staff has just done great work in preventing this from getting into our building. So on to the report. As I'm sure most of you have probably noticed, and I'll just touch on a few things and we can expand from there. If you look back in April of 2019, that was the month after our rate went from I think it was $80 to $90 a day. And last April, we brought in housing alone, $1,064,000. In April of 2020, our number was $698,220. So obviously, this information has been shared with finance. They know where we are at revenue-wise. I will tell you that from a revenue standpoint, while this doesn't look good at this point, I think we stopped taking new ICE detainees and new Marshal prisoners back about the time that we started taking temps and everything else. We didn't know what other facilities had, and we didn't want another inmate or detainee from another facility bringing it in here. Will that cost us revenue? Absolutely. But long term, I think it will ultimately be cheaper to prevent COVID from getting in our jail, affecting our staff and detainees, than continuing to bring in outside people to just increase our revenues. We truly believe, based on the conversations we've had with ICE and the marshals, that our numbers, once everything somewhat opens back up, that our numbers will increase significantly. Questions on that?
Sheriff, Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes.
Sheriff, I know revenues are down, but I assume transports probably also are down. So some of your expenses would be down there?
Well, transports are down. So if you look in, if you look at the transport line for April of 2020, we did 33 total transports. Those transports included 8 medical transports, 9 transports out of county, which meant we probably had to go pick up somebody who had a warrant. We've made 13 transports to the courthouse, and we made 3 transports for ICE. And that ICE transports, those ICE transports were to the airlift. So those were individuals who were being deported. We are still transporting inmates over to the courthouse only for those getting sentenced. So because the inmates have that right to be in front of the judge in person when they're getting sentenced, if they choose to do so, they can waive it. But as most do, they figure they're going to get a ride and check out the scenery outside of the jail, so a lot of them don't waive it. So yes, our transports are down, but remember, the majority of our transports, Mr. Lear, we are reimbursed for, so that even includes additional money. So yeah, we're not getting reimbursed for it, but we don't have the expense either, so it's somewhat of a wash at this point.
So any more questions about the report?
I have a comment.
Yes, sir.
Chairman.
Yes.
I noticed that on the transport 2, the juveniles, you had 27 in March and 0 in April.
Right. Yeah. So those are what cost us money.
That's what I mean. Yeah. There's no reimbursement for those.
No, there's no reimbursement for those.
One question, if
Mr.
Sheriff, I have to applaud the efforts of your staff when it comes to the discretionary and non-discretionary. Non-discretionary pickups are those individuals that you just have to pick up and you don't know what is out there, and so therefore they're at risk because they are part of the first responders. However, with the ICE, there is a no discretionary as you have stopped taking, and I need to know going forward, has ICE put in any precautions as to, in their policy procedures, as to them testing individuals prior to you receiving them? Is anything being discussed in that arena?
Not at this point, only because we're not taking new ones. So, what they choose to do going forward will be certainly up to them, but we do work with them I still stay in contact with them weekly to work together with them so that we can come to some solution. They're looking for housing. They're still looking for housing. And, there are too many facilities out there. And for those of you that may watch the Chicago news, you probably saw I think it was on Channel 7 about the MCC and the number of people up at the MCC, which would affect the federal inmates, which is why we don't take them, because a lot of them are coming from the MCC. So ICE is looking for beds, and at this point we are just holding off because, again, we don't know what we're getting.
Right, so I'm saying their procedures as far as testing, are they testing or doing anything to kind of safeguard?
I don't believe so, because they're not housing them. They're still out on the street. They probably haven't been caught yet. They're not testing the ones we have in our custody. But we also don't have anybody who has any symptoms either, so.
Right.
All righty, with no more questions, I guess we have a motion, a second on the report.
Well, I got more from the report, just a couple of things.
Okay, go ahead.
Just briefly. One thing of importance, I think our locals have actually gone down a little bit in all this, although unlike the state of Illinois, we didn't just release them willy-nilly. So last year we averaged about 267 in April. This year we're down to 249.
We'll work on getting those numbers back up for you.
That's what I'm afraid of.
Point of order, Mr. Rowe. No.
On our sworn side, if you check out the calls for service for this year compared to last year, our calls for service have actually more than doubled. So our guys are still out there working, and working hard. And as Mr. Snipes referenced, they too are on the front lines of this, not knowing at some point, what they're walking into. So a couple things to note, though. Civil process, paper service is down significantly. Obviously, there's no court, so there was no sense in serving papers for court dates that are in May and June, or in April and May, if there's no court. So We didn't serve those. There's no sheriff sales, no evictions. So there's significant reasons, definite reasons for those numbers being down. Now I'm done.
Have you seen a rise in domestic violence?
Without a doubt. Yeah, without a doubt. In fact, the reports we get, they're almost daily, and the arrests that we see, and I know Mr. Byrne has referenced it a couple times, but some of the things you don't see are things that calls that we go to houses where they may have been verbal and one person left to go live with somebody else for the night or whatever, and there was no arrest made. So those are significantly increasing, and that, as Mr. Rowe referenced, is somewhat troubling. Right. Okay, now I'm done, Mr. Chairman.
Motion to approve the report. Well, we already got the motion. All those in favor?
Motion.
Yep, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Alrighty.
I'll address a couple questions that came up between Mr. Penwick and Mr. Rowe regarding Illinois Department of Corrections. So part of the governor's executive order is that the Illinois Department of Corrections is not taking sentenced inmates from county jails. Our Illinois Sheriff's Association has worked hard to work out some form of reimbursement for those who are still in our custody who should be in the Illinois Department of Corrections. As of today, we have 15 inmates who have been sentenced who should be in Illinois Department of Corrections. So right now, although I don't know that it's officially signed, but right now the agreement is that if you have an agreement with the federal government to house their prisoners, they will honor that cost. So right now, the Illinois Department of Corrections will reimburse us $90 per day for those that we have in custody. Couple things.
Is that retroactive?
That is retroactive back to the day of the governor's executive order.
Thank you.
So now I have a couple thoughts on that. And unfortunately, my first thought is, my guess is that we won't get a dime from the state of Illinois for doing that. That's just a guess. That is my own opinion. I just can't see them paying for us to house their prisoners in spite of what's going on. We have had to answer Mr. Penwick's question. The state of Illinois has all the inmate information, the sentenced inmate information, and we have actually had the state of Illinois DOC come here and actually release somebody from our custody. Actually, they were being released from the Illinois Department of Corrections, but they walked out of our building because they had already served their time. So they are well aware of the date of sentence, the length of sentence, and then they calculate the time there. Once an inmate leaves here after he's been sentenced, our judges, our state's attorney, our public defenders, the sheriff's office has nothing to do with calculating their time served. That is all strictly Illinois Department of Corrections, which is the reason that they're able to release people that the 4,000 that they've released because of this COVID, some of which have already committed other crimes elsewhere, which was pretty predictable, but that's a whole nother story. Now, the scary part about the Illinois Department of Corrections not taking sentenced inmates, there has been talk over the past few years. It's never gotten any traction, but this may give it the traction it needs, and that is that right now, if you're convicted of a felony and sentenced to more than a year, you go to the Illinois Department of Corrections. In some states already, and Illinois will probably push this to lengthen that number. So there may be legislation. This is probably just a precursor to them changing this to where anybody sentenced to less than 3 years will now spend their time in the county jail. That, again, that is strictly a guess, but knowing that we're doing this now, that's probably the direction that the state of Illinois is heading. Just FYI.
Better build out the third section of the jail.
Well, if you give me $20 million, we'll do it tomorrow. So, any questions on that? I only have a couple other things real quick. I already mentioned that since March 20th, we've had 168 new felony arrests in our building. Some are still here, some get released, some postponed. And so that number, I would imagine, will continue. And lastly, we have, through our corrections division, and those of you that are familiar with Thinking for a Change, not so much the individuals that are in our custody, but there's a Thinking for a Change group that are out of custody. We actually have sewing machines, and they are in the process of learning how to make masks. And they have made some. It's a slow process right now, only because they're learning how to do this. We expect that to pick up as they get more familiar with it, but we are making face masks that at some point we hope we can distribute to those in need, and you know, benefit everybody, because I'm sure we're going to be wearing masks for quite a while. So, and that's really all I have.
Anything else there for questions for the sheriff? Is there anything on animal control, Sheriff, this time, or circle back?
Animal control still operational. They're still responding to calls. We are working normal hours, and things have gone pretty well out there. We did have maintenance come and cut the grass yesterday, so we eliminated the cost for an outside service to do that. So nothing major.
Okay. All righty. With that, any other questions from the group? All righty. Have a good day.
Thank you. You guys too.
All righty. Moving on. Coroner's report from Bob Gessner. He has a monthly report. Is there, or reports, plural. Is there a motion to approve his reports? Mr. Long, second. Mrs. Parker. Floor is yours, Bob.
All right, thank you. Good morning to everybody. Our statistics are going up, as you can probably see. I don't know if they have that sheet up on there, Andy?
No, everybody's got it in their packet. We don't have it up on the screen.
Like I say, our call numbers have gone up. Our autopsies have been going up since beginning, not just the COVID-19. I'm talking about overdoses, and I'll get into that. Other than that, I'll let you ask me any questions if you have anything on that, on the summary of March and April.
Any questions on the coroner's reports?
Bob, would you care to comment on what's being talked about in terms of listing cause of death?
For the COVID-19?
Yes.
Sure. Well, I'll give you an update that I have as of yesterday. We've had 615 deaths in Kankakee County this year. 37 of them been COVID-19 related deaths. A death is considered a COVID-19 when it's related when the primary physician or the coroner of the COVID-19 lists that as the cause of death or as a contributing cause of death. To this date, the doctors have signed 34 out of the 37, and I've signed 3. I've heard a number of questions through your other meetings there, and like I said, a lot of it, there's probably roughly 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 right now are just plain COVID-19s, but most of them are due to pneumonia and other causes of death, because out of the 37 deaths, 38% of the deaths have been under the care of hospice. 54% of the deaths have occurred in long-term care facility. The average age is at 79, and the youngest is at 48. The oldest we have is at 97. There's been 16 males and 21 females. 84% of the deaths have been Caucasians, 11% African American, and 5% Hispanics. There, out of the 37 deaths, there has been 3 that died in our county, but from outside the county. So that's why we're different from the health department in that way. Does that help you in any way?
Thank you.
Chairman,
Yes, Ms. Parker.
I just want to say to Mr. Gessner, thank you for sharing those stats on Facebook for the public. That really helped a lot for them to see those numbers. I really appreciate that.
And we'll continue to do that.
Thank you.
Other than that, I just want to mention, because back in 2017, I always was harping, got complaints, always talking about ODs. Well, ODs are back up again. Don't know if that's because of the stimulus. We had 4 quick deaths the other day when everybody got their money. It's a factor, I think, is that I use in the ODs. We're up 10 right now on ODs in 2019. If we go the way we are, we're going to attack that 56, and I hope we don't. I hope it goes down. I can't get out and do as much education as I did before, but I think those are the factors. We're still an average age of 44 years old. We're still, the males are 14 and the females are 6. We are 20 cases right now, but 4 are pending, and we're definitely know that those are going to be. Again, we're hitting the cause, and I'm keeping track of the fentanyl is a big drug out there and continually being the big drug, but it's being mixed. We just had a case received yesterday on my desk that was cocaine and fentanyl. Well, you know what that mixture. So that's my feelings on that. It's a concern to me. Again, with my staff, just like the sheriff said about his staff too, I commend my staff to try to keep safe out there when they go into these houses. And again, our morgue is updated and cleaned at all times. We haven't had to do any autopsies on COVID-19 cases because the CDC does not want you to do one. But we don't have a negative pressure room for autopsies. There's only one in the state of Illinois, and that's at Cook County. So I'll ask you why there isn't any autopsies, or I heard the other day, why don't we see an autopsy report? That's the reason why. There's not autopsies being done on this.
All righty. Any other questions about the report?
Yeah, that was my question, because I know when I inquired, they stated that to do an autopsy or basically have a pathologist or medical examiner to assess it and actually describe it, it would be like $700 per person, and that was just that would be a cost that if they tested everyone and gave that type of cause of death on a pathology report, it would be just astronomical. So they just simply, take the doctor's word, or I guess the coroner's word, as to if they were tested COVID, that it was COVID related.
Yeah, we keep a pretty good eye on that. It is a scary factor when you do autopsies out here, because you really don't know if they do have COVID, if they've ever been tested for it. So we keep well updated on that, and we keep well protected. I have a rule out there, and we've eliminated a number of people that go into the autopsy room also.
All righty. Any more?
That's it, sir.
We have the motion in the second. All those in favor of approving the report, say aye.
Aye.
Motion, or those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Anything else, Mr. Gessner?
No, sir.
I appreciate all you do. Thank you so much.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I have a question for Mr. Gessner.
Okay.
Bob, is there any, I just drew a blank on grants out there for any more of your training like you've been doing? You've been able to procure any grants?
Yes, sir. We're working on that right now with the health department. We are working on that grant. We're hoping to get enough money again to continue to do this Narcan program. So we've had a number of saves out there from the law enforcement, but we're very pleased with that. But we still are pursuing another grant. Keep you advised on that.
Good.
Good, thank you.
Yep.
And something related to that, it's more public safety related, connected with the health department. We've applied for a grant that could potentially pay for some more tracers, people to trace down COVID positives, and so we can start to work through those a lot quicker and maybe increase capacity. But it's somewhat related to public safety, but I thought I'd mention it here, and I'll definitely bring it up at executive at the end of the month. It'd be nice if we can get some extra help for a health department. That's one limiting factor, is to be able to trace those people down and move quickly doing it. Anything under new business? Anybody have new business?
Chairman?
Yes, Mrs. Parker.
Chairman, to continue with the agenda, are we going to go back and approve the minutes from March before we move into new business?
Sure. I thought we approved it, but we did?
Yeah.
Okay. Kelly's got it that we approved it.
Okay.
All right.
I must have dozed off. I'm sorry.
Is there a motion to approve the approval? No, I'm just kidding. No, thanks for catching that. Any other new business stuff? Old business? All righty. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'd make a motion to adjourn.
Motion and a second from Mr. Long. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Is that Jim? Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Have a good day.